CitySpace. How many people listen to Fast and Curious? Big fans. That's great. Little housekeeping. We are running about 15 minutes late, but we're not going to shorten the show at all. So this is going to go from 11:30 to 12:15. And Mick Sullivan will be outside in the lobby afterwards. He's giving away swag. He's selling books. And he'll just talk to all of you. And you are in for such a treat. This is such a fun, cute show. If you bought tickets to Smash Boom Best, stay in your seats at the end of Fast and Curious just for a few minutes. We'll just sign you in, and then you're welcome to go back outside. I need to thank our sponsors for this Children's Podcast Festival, PNC Bank, Brave Food Kind, that their teriyaki chicken is to die for. So they have plenty of samples. It is delicious. And Weston Nurseries. With no further ado, please welcome Mick Sullivan.
Holy cow. Holy cow. I am so excited. I'm Mick Sullivan. I came all the way from Kentucky to be here, and this is amazing. So thank you all so much for coming. If you don't know, the history podcast that I create, The Past and the Curious, we look at all sorts of weird stories, all sorts of fun stories, all sorts of things that people you haven't heard about. So it's really fun for me to share this with people. My day job, I work in a history museum in Louisville, Kentucky called the Fraser History Museum. And I get to talk to kids all the time and tell stories. So some of the stuff that I'm going to do, I've workshopped on them. So, but this is my first live show like this. So thank you all so much. Yeah. We're going to sing a couple songs, too. I'm going to teach you all a couple songs that you probably heard from the show. You might remember. But, you know, one of the last story that I'm going to tell you all is probably my favorite story. I told you I was from Kentucky, and there are, I'm sure there's people from all over, but it's really important to me, and I hope as you all grow up, too, that it's important to you to celebrate people from your community. And so that's what I'm going to do. A lot of these people, they're very important to my state, but they're important internationally, too. So one of the people, the person that I'm going to introduce you to at the end, she had probably one of the it had to have been the most nerve-wracking experience possible. And I understand what she felt like standing here in front of this audience. You know, it's very nerve-wracking. It's Boston, it's WBUR, there's so many people, it's great. But you know, there's all sorts of advice that people give to people if they're gonna be nervous and on stage. There's adages, you know, they tell, you know, I have a hard time keeping them straight, right? And I know that there's one that's like about the audience and underwear. But I can never keep it straight in my mind. I think, if I remember it correctly, it's show the audience your underwear, right? So, I don't know. Let's try it. I brought some. I've been wearing them all weekend. Here they are. These are my undies. Has anyone have a pair of these? Yeah. All right, well, we're going to talk about them because they're really fun, and it's going to lead us to our first story. Originally, these were the common name for these, you call them a union suit, right? I don't know if you've heard that before. And they were patented in 1867, I think, or 1868, right after the Civil War. So a lot of people think they're called the Union suit because of the Union Army, which is not true. It's really just because there's one big union of pants and shirts all together. You got your trap door on the back if you need it, which you will. And but what's fascinating about them, and this is in the book that I wrote, is that they were originally conceived and designed to be, they were called women's emancipation flannel undergarments. So you've seen those great big dresses that women would wear, right? A long time ago, they'd fill those dresses with crinolines and fabrics and all that sort of stuff, which would keep them really warm. And then cages came about, so they had like whalebone cages, and people would still knock over things when they walked around. But it was open air under there, so women got cold. So they designed that and sold them in 1868, and it was a big thing. And then everyone else was like, I want those too. So men and children all started wearing those underwear. There's one man in particular who owes his life to these underwear. And his name is John Wesley Powell. I don't know if you all remember this story or if you've heard his name before. He was actually one of the co-founders of the National Geographic Society. When he was little, his parents were what I like to call the good kind of troublemakers. They were abolitionists. They were very outspoken and advocated against slavery in the United States, which at the time meant they made a lot of enemies with their neighbors. So they moved around a lot, and he got bullied in school because of that. So his parents hired him a private teacher, and this teacher was really into science, and they would spend time like walking through the woods and collecting specimens and looking for fossils and doing all sorts of really, important stuff, trying to figure out how old the Earth was. And when he was a young man, he went on this boat trip down the Ohio River. Have you ever like tried to pick something up with your toes? Like monkey feet? Yeah. So he would row down the river, and he would park his boat and then wade around in the mud and dig in the mud with his toes until he found a mussel, and he would bring that up. And he eventually had what was generally believed to be the finest mussel collection in the United States. It's really something to hang your hat on, Then the Civil War began, and he fought in the Civil War. He actually led troops, and he lost an arm in the Civil War. But as soon as he recuperated, he went back into the field. By the time the war was over, he started teaching, and he realized, he was teaching science, and he realized that teaching in a classroom just wasn't for him. He had really big dreams, and his biggest dream was he wanted to lead the expedition to be the first people of European descent to go all the way down the Grand Canyon, right? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's really, really, really a difficult thing to do. Especially with these two like Boston whaling skiffs that he bought for the job. So they're like rolling down the river, smashing into every single rock along the way. And he didn't want to bring a lot of stuff with him. So he brought like bacon, flour, feed the guys. He had a team of like 12 people. And one guy was like, yeah, we're going to need stuff to wear. So he agreed to buy 24 pairs. This is 1868. So like this was like a year old. 24 pairs of red flannel underwear, right? So one day, they're making it down the river, and the reason he wanted to be there was because, the river is cut for eons and eons into the earth. So there's so much that he could learn and see from all around him. So one day, he and another guy start scaling a wall, climbing up, because there's something he wants to see. About 80 feet up, right? Remember, he has one arm. So he's up in the air, holding onto a tree root. He's about 80 feet up, and his friend is right above him until he hears, oh, I can't go on any farther. And his friend looks down, and he sees John Wesley Powell stuck. He has a tree branch in his hand, and he has nothing else to grab onto. And the tree branch is failing. So this guy has to do some quick thinking, and the only solution that they can arrive at is this man needs to take off his underwear. So he strips down, he's buck naked, and he dangles his long underwear down for John Wesley Powell to reach, and in one fell swoop, he lets go of the root and grabs the underwear, and the guy pulls him up to safety. Right? It's a harrowing tale, I know. So be grateful if you've got a pair of those. And that leads me into a song that I would like to sing with you all. I'm going to teach you a song, which I've done in the show before. It's been a long time, though, so I don't know if you'll remember. So before I sing the song, I'm just going to teach you one part. I'm not going to tell you anything else about the song, and you're going to call and respond to me when I tell you. So those were called union suits. Does anyone else think, have you ever heard of another thing to call those underwear? Is there any other name you think of? Yeah. Long johns. Yeah, totally. That's a big one. That's what I always called them growing up. Do you think of something else? Onesies. Oh, totally. That's absolutely a onesie, right? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't even think about that. It's like a grown-up onesie. Yeah. Long underwear. Yeah, totally. There's another one. It's a really weird name. Where I'm from, Kentucky's not that far south. Don't get any ideas or anything. But there's another thing called long handles. Long handles is what they call them, all right? So this song is called Long Handle Time in Tennessee. It's about long underwear. But so in order to do it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you just a little bit. I'm going to sing a bit, and then there's a call, and you all will be the response. And that happens 4 times, but there's stuff that happens in between. It'll be fine. You'll get it. So what I'm going to do when I need you is I'm going to go. It's a Grateful Dead thing. Got to tune real quick. Okay. It's hot up here on the stage. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, in Tennessee. And right there, immediately, you'll go, in Tennessee. So it'll be like, in Tennessee, Tennessee, in Tennessee. God, that's awesome. Nice. All right. So there's 4 things that you all are going to do, but it's not the same thing each time. So let me just do them. We'll see how it goes, and then we'll sing the song together, okay? All right. 1, 2, 3. In Tennessee, in Tennessee. Perfect. All right. No parting there. No. Let's do that again. No parting there. No parting there. Good. Yeah, you got it. All right. And then there's to the knees. Right, good, yeah. And then the last one is, over me, over me. Yes, you all are good. All right, let's do it. All right, long handle time in Tennessee. Oh, by the way, this is by this weird comedy act from the 50s named, oh yeah, thanks, sing. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sleeping on the job. Homer and Jethro wrote this song. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of them, but yeah, all right, good. 1, 2, 3, oh wait, gotta get the right key. When it's long handle time in Tennessee. Not there. When it's long handle time in Tennessee, I will take my old guitar upon my knee. When the winter wind it blows, I will yodel through my nose. When it's long handle time in Tennessee. Here we go. In Tennessee, yeah, when it's long handle time in Tennessee, I'll get out my old red handles, I mean them old red flannels, when it's long handle time in Tennessee. Yeah, do it, that's fine. There are many types of handles you can wear. There are long ones, round ones, short ones, thin and square. But the ones that I love best, they're the ones with a little vest, 'cause they button and there ain't no parting there. Here we go. No parting there, no parting there. Yeah, they button and there ain't no parting there. They're just like my grandpa's hair, for there ain't no parting there. That's why I love my winter underwear. I dug into my old trunk the other day. My long handles I had put there for to stay. What I opened up to see, Lord, it sure embarrassed me, for the rats had gnawed a hole plumb to the knee. To the knee, to the knee, for the rats had gnawed a hole plumb to the knee. So I put them on the shelf and I ate the rest myself, the little parts the rats had left for me. I know, right? All right, last verse. The end is coming soon, I promise. When I die and they put me in my grave, there is only one thing, Mama, that I crave. When they lay me down to rest, please fulfill my last request. Won't you button my long handles over me? Here we go. Over me, over me. Won't you button my long handles over me? Now this song ain't meant to please. Listen to my little please. Put your handles on before you start to freeze. You all did a great job. Thank you. All right, I'm going to get back on my thing here. All right, good. So here's a story really quickly. This is a short from the book. Just, someone who did get buried in their underwear. I'm sure plenty of us have had a pair or two of uncomfortable underwear. The itchy type, right? I don't think there's anything itchier, though, than some underwear that some people wore in the Middle Ages called hair shirts and hair pants, which were made out of goat's hair or other equally itchy animal fur. And it was a thing that people did to humble themselves. It might be a religious commitment to atone for a sin or something like that. But if you've ever heard of King Charlemagne, he was a pretty important guy, very famous, important king. He was actually buried in a hair shirt and matching hair pants underneath his, nice clothes, just as a reminder to stay humble in the afterlife. So he's not the only guy that's been buried that way. Now, my favorite part. Okay, I'm going to show you a picture. I'm going to tell you a story. And I want you to take a look at this picture. I'm not going to tell you what's happening right now. So just take a look. Look at everything that's happening, up left, down right, center. Try to piece together what you think is happening. And I'm going to tell you that this picture was it was above the fold in a newspaper. In the 1900s, there was a thing called newspapers. And if you had a picture above the fold, like where they folded in half, that was big. You either did something really important or something terrible or something really heroic. All right? So this picture was above the fold in 1916 in a Cleveland newspaper, and then it was reprinted all around the country because of this moment. Has anyone ever seen it before? Great. This is Garrett Morgan. Garrett Morgan was born in Paris, Kentucky in 1877. His parents had been enslaved before he was born. They were sharecroppers by the time he came around, and they also had 11 kids. And here's the thing about Paris and most of Kentucky, probably a lot of America at the time, is that public school stopped at the 6th grade. So anyone who went to school past the 6th grade in this community had to be able to afford to pay for it themselves. His family could not, and everyone realized that was really unfortunate because Garrett was brilliant. Everyone who ever met him knew he had a brain like nobody else's, right? So after school, after 6th grade, he stays around, helps the family for a bit. 14 years old, he's 14. He moves home alone. He leaves, says goodbye to his family, and gets a job working in Cincinnati, Ohio. He's a handyman, and he gets his paycheck, every Friday or whatever. He gets his paycheck, and he takes it and he spends it on 3 things. He pays for room, a place to stay, board, things to eat, and with what's left over, dig this, he hires a private teacher to continue his own education. Pretty awesome, right? He's got a really mechanical mind, too, so he likes to take things apart and put them back together. And by the time he's 20, he's living in Cleveland, Ohio, and there's lots and lots of clothing factories there. So, clothing factories are filled with sewing machines. And he figures out how to fix sewing machines, makes a couple improvements, little inventions that nobody remembers anymore. But they were his first inventions, and it went really well. He eventually falls in love with a German immigrant, and they open their own repair factory themselves. Then they open a clothing factory. Every time they do something, they keep it open, they hold on to the business, and they're building a nice life. They have a nice house, they've got kids. Everything's going great for Garrett, right? One day, he walks out of his factory, and there's a factory, a small factory across the street from him that has caught fire. And he watches as the firefighters cannot go in and rescue people, because you can't breathe in a smoke-filled room, right? So he puts his mind to it. He's got time and money to play with, and he decides to put it to good use. So ultimately, about 1914, he patents the safety hood, which was the first functional gas mask in American history. This is the patent. That's Garrett wearing the safety hood, right? He looks like something out of Star Wars. And it's great. What it is it's a canvas hood, and it comes down to here. And those big trunk things, they actually drag the ground behind him. So the idea, smoke rises, you pull it from down there, but there's also filters in it, right? So it works really well. But then he has to figure out, I made a cool invention. How do I sell it? What do I do? So what he settles on is he will go around to fire departments in his area, and he will build a tent on their front yard or something, and he'll light a fire inside the tent, and then go stand inside. And they're like, this guy's going to die. And he walks out alive, and they're like, we'll take them, right? All the firefighters are lining up to buy him, right? So now he's got another business that's going really well. Around this time, Cleveland, where he lives, was pulling all of their water from Lake Erie, which was really, really, really polluted. Factories would just dump their waste into the lake, which is the same water that, people would drink, brush their teeth with. Bad. So the city was building a pump 3 miles out into the middle of the lake. And they decided that it was easier in 1914 to dig a tunnel underneath Lake Erie. So 24 hours a day, there were people digging a tunnel underneath one of the Great Lakes. Guess what happened? It collapsed. But as they went along, they stabilized it. So when it collapsed, there were about 12 people inside. It was the middle of the night. They were like the second or third shift crew, right? But it didn't crush anyone, and it didn't even flood with water. But what did happen is some people got stuck in separate areas, and when the stone released, there were gases, maybe carbon monoxide or things that coal miners have to deal with, that released. And those people, well, 6 of them were trapped in a section, and they didn't survive. They couldn't get oxygen to survive. There were another 6 who were trapped inside, though, alive, in a pocket of oxygen. And the first responders would go through the tunnel. They'd hit a passage that was filled with gas. They'd pass out, and somebody'd have to come rescue them. So no one knew what to do, except one guy was a fireman, and he had seen Garrett do his tent show. He was like, well, there's this guy. He has a phone, and he has a car, which were not common. But more importantly, he has this gas mask thing that he invented. Let's give him a call. So they call Garrett up. He is asleep, and he rolls out of bed like Batman or something, shows up in his pajamas, doesn't put on clothes. His brother's with him, who lives next door, and the 2 of them put on the hoods, and they go inside, and they rescue the 6 survivors. And that is what that picture is. Isn't that amazing? So there's Garrett. You can see his mask now, right? Now you know what it looks like. And then that man right there, everyone's like, oh, what's going on with his face? I think what Garrett did is actually go in, was prepared and went in with wet towels or something to cover their face so that they would have some sort of filter to breathe through as he brought them to safety. So the good news is all 6 of those people survived. Garrett rescued all of them, right? The better news is that this was the first version of the gas mask. This was 1916. There was a thing called World War I in 1917, and chemical warfare became a thing. And that gas mask saved a lot of people's lives. They adapted it and changed it, but it was the first version. But what he's most famous for is the 3-position traffic signal. And here's a tip. A lot of people will say he invented the traffic light. That's not the case. It doesn't have a light. It's just a signal. But he was the first person to go, you know what? Stop and go, kind of missing something, right? So he did really well. He sold that to GE in 1923 for $40,000. Did a great job. He founded the first black newspaper in Cleveland, and actually the first country club in Cleveland that was open to all races as well. So he died in 1963, was one of the wealthiest men in the area, and I think his granddaughter is actually the dean of one of the universities in Cleveland too. So the family is really embedded, right? We're going to 12:15 that we moved to? All right, great. Okay. All right, here's my favorite. This is my favorite story. Does anyone remember the Lily Mae Ledford episode? Okay, good. Don't tell anyone what happens. Let me ask you a question. Have you all ever been nervous about something? Yeah. What is something that you have been nervous about? You can shout it out and I'll repeat it on the microphone. Tell me something you've been nervous about.
I've been nervous, maybe about my birthday party.
You're going to have a birthday party coming up. Yeah, it's absolutely nerve-wracking, right? You got to plan, you got to prepare, you got cakes to bake and decorations to decorate. What about you? Something you've been nervous about? Go ahead, right here in the purple pants. I hoped someone would say performing in front of a bunch of people. That's great. What about right here? And we have a mic now. Tell me something you're nervous about. Band concert. That's great. What about here? I'll take the mic over here too. I'll stroll. I'll do some crowd work. Xavier, what about you?
I've been nervous about coming here.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're here. There's nothing to fear. Well, all right. Those are great examples. Oh, we have another one? Getting a shot and going to camp. Yeah, going to camp and like the first day of school. People are nervous about that sort of stuff, right? I get it. Everyone is nervous. You could try my underwear trick if you want next time. If you want. But if not, just maybe remember Lily Mae's story and be like, well, at least I don't have to be as nervous as she was doing something so incredibly out of the ordinary. So here's her story. Lily Mae Ledford was born in Powell County, Kentucky, which is down around the Tennessee border. In Tennessee! All right, good. I wasn't going to do that, but now. You're paying attention. So she was born in Powell County, Kentucky. There's a beautiful place there called Red River Gorge where people will come from all over the world to rock climb. She's around there. There's a river, the Red River. And one day, she's about, I think she was 10 or so. She was down at the river, just throwing rocks. And her family, like Garrett's, were sharecroppers. They didn't have a lot of money. And she wanted, ever so badly, to play music. She wanted to play fiddle or violin. We call them fiddles in Kentucky. I'm sure you call them that here. No, it's all the same. Same instrument. But her family couldn't afford one, so they didn't know what to do. And one day she's at the river, she's throwing rocks, and she sees this kid that she knows from school, and he's just like cutting a trail through the woods, and she assumes he's like swinging an axe or a knife to cut the pathway. And when he gets closer, she realizes it's a violin, it's a fiddle. And she's like, whoa, what are you doing with that thing? She's like, I want one of those. He's like, my uncle gave it to me. I don't want this crummy old thing. And she's like, well, come back to my house and I will trade you whatever I have. So in the end, she gave him a box of crowns and a broken flashlight and a couple other things. And I'm sure he thought, yeah, I came out ahead. And she's like, I came out ahead, right? Unfortunately, the fiddle sustained some damage. so she had to do some fixing on the fiddle. By the way, the reason I know this story so well is because Lily Mae did something very cool, and that is she sat for an oral history at the end of her life. So towards the end of her life, someone sat down with her with a microphone and asked her questions about her life. And it is publicly available, as are lots and lots of oral histories. So if you're ever curious about someone, there might be an oral history that you can find related to them, or you might want to take it upon yourself to create an oral history by asking someone in your family about their life story so that it's always available for people. It's one way that we preserve history, so it's really, really important. And I'm grateful she did, because I'm working on a book about her. So anyway, she is she fixes the fiddle and ultimately learns how to play. I mean, anyone who's ever heard anyone learn how to play violin, it's really bad for a long time. But she gets good. And here's the thing about this time period, is if you are living in the 1920s in many places in the United States, and you want to have music, you need somebody in your house to play that music for you, or else you do it yourself, right? They didn't have a radio. Radio was just coming into being. And they didn't have a record player. So anyone who was going to have a party in Powell County, Kentucky, and beyond practically, would call Lily Mae up, and she would play the music, and everyone would dance, and her siblings learned how to play too, and then they had a little band they toured around. They did really well. Then she actually competed in a fiddle contest, and she won. And the judge of the contest was a man from Chicago, and he was in this new world of radio. And he was like, you know what, you should come up to Chicago and be on the radio. We'll pay you to be on the radio. She was like, why Chicago? He was like, well, there's lots of people from Kentucky and Tennessee and West Virginia who are moving up to these cities to find jobs in factories, and they miss their homes. And if you're going to play music that they recognize, it's going to mean a lot to them. She was like, okay, let's go. So she goes up to Chicago, and she becomes a radio star. She's Lily Mae, fiddling Lily Mae, right? She plays other instruments too. She plays the banjo, as you can clearly see. This is her sister Rosie, who comes into the story in a minute. After a while, she does so well that she becomes, the radio station's like, you know what? You should be more than just like on the radio. Let's build a band around you. So they created the Coon Creek Girls. They invited her sister. That's Lily Mae with the fiddle there. That's her sister Rosie. And then they hired two other women who didn't have flower names, and they were like, that's not going to work. So they took the names of Violet and Daisy, I think. Yeah, Rose, yeah, something like that. So anyway, they became and are remembered as the very first all-woman string band in history. So it was a country act. It was before bluegrass, and they were on the radio. They were on. They had records. They did concert tours, and they had one really big fan, and that really big fan was President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Right? He loved him, and in 1939, something was going to happen that had never happened in history before. The King and Queen of England were coming to America. No reigning monarch had ever come to America. It's like they were mad about the revolution for generations, So anyway, they're coming to America. Here's the king here. That's the queen, and that's Roosevelt's mother, and that's Eleanor Roosevelt. And they plan all these festivities. One of my favorite episodes of The Past and the Curious is about hot dogs. Does anyone remember the hot dog episode? Yeah, all right. So they come into this is that same visit, right? So they're here and like they're doing all sorts of American stuff, and it was like big in the press because the Roosevelts fed them hot dogs, right? And like the queen, everyone's like, oh. The queen didn't know what to do. She started eating it with a fork and knife, you know? And do you remember, does anyone remember what Roosevelt said to her when she was like, how do I eat this? He said, you just put it in your mouth and you chew. So one of the last things they do, though, was not a hot dog dinner. It was a very fancy dinner. They were in the White House. They had 100 rich, important dignitaries, people, probably lobster dinners, all sorts of fancy stuff, chandeliers. It's in the White House. It's as fancy as it gets. And there in the front was the king and queen and Roosevelt and Eleanor and a cadre of other people. And Lily Mae gets to sing 4 songs with the Coon Creek Girls. Like, nerve-wracking, right? The most powerful people in the world, practically, sitting there. And here's the thing about, like, kings and queens is, like, they train them to be, like, stoic. And she said in the oral history, she said she sat there. She was like, the king was right there. And he looked like a mannequin. She's like, you got an audience. Like, you get a give and take. Like, there's response, right? And she went nowhere. And so she made it her mission. She's like, I'm going to get that guy to tap his foot or smile or something, right? So she focuses all of her energy on him. If I have time, I'll tell you how that story works out. But the last song they sang is a song that I know. President Roosevelt really loved it. And I'm going to teach it to you all. It's called, How Many Biscuits Can You Eat? A lot? All right. All the biscuits in the world. Well, I mean, I don't know. At any given moment, how many biscuits are there in the world? Probably not many at like 8:30 p.m., but like 7 a.m., that's a lot of biscuits. I don't know. Was I not plugged in the first time? Okay, cool. All right, so this song, it's a call and response, and it's going to go a lot like the last one. But so we got a little bit of learning to do. So I'm going to sing something, you're going to sing something, we'll do that twice, and then there's something that we're all going to sing together at the end, okay? So really quickly, let me give you a sense of how that goes. And you might remember this from the podcast because I lean pretty hard on it. My friend Julia Purcell actually sang it on the podcast. She's the one who first taught me the story. It goes, how many biscuits can you eat this morning? And you all go, this morning. How many biscuits can you eat this evening? Yeah, you got it. How many biscuits can you eat? 49 and a ham of meat. And then all together, we go, this morning, this evening, right now. All right? You want to try that part right there? All right, 2, 3, 4. This morning, this evening, right now. Oh, that's good. Let's do it one more time. 2, 3, 4. This morning, this evening, right now. Good. All right, let's try like one time through. This isn't for all the marbles. King's not here yet. Okay. How many biscuits can you eat this morning? How many biscuits can you eat this evening? How many biscuits can you eat? 49 and a ham of meat this morning, this evening, right now. Really good. I love it. This is a great room. Okay. Is there anyone feeling brave? Is someone feeling brave, feeling particularly stoic, like they could maybe sit on stage and not smile while we sing this song? I saw your hand first, and then come on up. You want to try it? Now, here's how this goes. If you smile, don't feel bad. It's all good. Can you grab him a chair, please? I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. This wasn't on the program. All right, so what's your name? Owen. What's your name?
Owen.
That's my son's name. I think he's watching at home. Hi, Owen. And hi, Owen. Okay, so here's how this is going to go, Owen. You are the king. It is your job to not smile, not tap your foot, not look like you're enjoying this at all. Can you do that? Okay, do you want to face me? Do you want to face them? Do you want to look out into the ether so that you don't have to acknowledge that you're here right now? All right, that's good. I think he's got it. I didn't know he started already. This is good. All right. Oh, boy. All right. Now, if the king you know, if we don't do this well, you know what they do. It's like off with your head sort of thing, right? They were done with that by then. Okay. Think we can do this? All right, let's sing it as good as we can for the king. King, be cool. 2, 3, 4. How many biscuits can you eat this morning? How many biscuits can you eat this evening? How many biscuits can you eat? 49 and a ham of meat this morning, this evening, right now. Good. All right, you're doing good. You're doing good. Oh, make my coffee good and strong this morning. Make my coffee good and strong this evening. Make my coffee good and strong and keep on bringing those biscuits on this morning, this evening, right now. Good, you got it, you got it, got it. How you feeling, King? Ice cold. Oh, I love my wife and I love my baby this morning. Love my wife and I love my baby this evening. Love my wife and I love my baby. Love my biscuit soaked in gravy this morning, this evening, right now. Oh, how many biscuits can you eat this morning? How many biscuits can you eat this evening? How many biscuits can you eat? 49 and a ham of meat this morning, this evening, right now. Wow, 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 wow. I forgot to teach you the ending, but that's how it ends. Hey, round of applause for Owen the King. Okay. Oh, that was awesome. The King Owen. Love it. Were you doing it too? You were not smiling? Oh, man. Oh, boy. Well, I'm sorry I made so many people not smile. Okay, so that's actually the end of the program. But there is a nice little button on that story since we have time. I don't usually tell this. But she spent the entire time like worried about this. And at the end, she noticed the king actually like kind of nodded his head and smiled. And she thought that it was because she played so well. Not the case. So what happened was in 1939, the DuPont company at the World's Fair in New York, it was in, what part of New York was it? I forget, Yonkers maybe. DuPont debuted a brand new thing, nylon stockings, right? And so they had nylon stockings on, which they were not used to wearing. They normally wore wool stockings. And so her sister Rosie, as she would always do, right before they played, she took her money and she put it in the top of her stockings. And then as she stomped, the wool stockings would keep it in place. And also they were opaque, so you couldn't really see. What happened is this $5 bill kept sliding down her leg until it was right there at her knee, right at the king's eyeball. And Lily put it together. She's like, that's what he was laughing about. So again, it's really great that people like Lily have given us these oral histories to share their life stories. And that's what I'm most interested in with the past and the curious. And so I'm so pleased that you all are here. This has been a pleasure. Sorry, I get emotional sometimes. Thank you all. Yeah, I'm just a guy from Kentucky who does this in his basement, you know? So this is awesome. So thank you all so much. I think I'm out of copies of The Meat Shower, but it has been not on Amazon for a long time, but it's back. So if you want to get it there. I do also have a few copies left of I See Lincoln's Underpants, so I know I'll be out there. I think we have a couple minutes. Does anyone have any questions? Can we do some Q&A? That'd be great. Yeah, right there.
How do you find like the stories that you do?
That's a really great question. I'm fortunate that I work in a museum, so I'm around history all the time, and I like to be around people that think about the same things that I think about, you know? That's important. And so I do spend a lot of time. I read a lot, you know? I love to read. I also like to... I talk to people, and if someone just says one little thing, like this story about Lily Mae Ledford, I was in a rehearsal with my friend Julia, who plays guitar and sings, and she was like, "Have you ever heard about the time that Lily Mae Ledford played in front of the king?" And I was like, "No." And look, it turned out to be like my favorite story in history. So, you know, things come. I just try to stay open. Like I try to keep an open mind and look for things that will lead to other things. And ultimately, someday I want to write a book where everything connects, where it's like six degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever, where it's like this person met this person met this person met this person. Like you could connect Edgar Allan Poe to, I don't know, Lily May. Yeah, totally. Yes.
How did your show get started in the first place?
That's a great question too. So my son Owen is 6. He has a little brother named Ben who's 4. And I started the podcast when around the time that Owen was born, because I was probably kind of going crazy, you know. But I'm a musician by trade. I play music. I've gigged a lot, and I knew that was not going to be a regular part of my life because the demands of being a parent. So I needed to find a way to bring that, fill that void in myself. And so I started the podcast. But also I would talk to kids all the time at the museum. And I would write programs for summer camps, and it'd be like, oh man, that was a great story, and I only get to tell it one time. So I just kind of built up and wanted to share it and give it a life.
How did you learn all these songs?
Actually, believe it or not, my degree is in music. I have a music degree. I've just always been around music, and my family likes to play music, so I've been fortunate to be surrounded by it.
Who illustrated I See Lincoln's Underpants?
Thank you for asking. That's my friend Suki Anderson. She lives like a block and a half away from me in Louisville, Kentucky, so I can walk to her house, and she's become a great friend. So it's neat that I got to work together with a friend. She's a wonderful person.
What's your favorite episode?
Oh, I knew someone was going to ask that. I don't know. You know what? The thing is I've written so many that I have gotten to a point where I actually forget. I'm like, have I covered that? I've started a story before and then realized, oh, I've already written this. So it's dangerous. But you know that I've told Garrett Morgan's story a couple times on the show in different ways. So Garrett is my favorite person to talk about. I think a part of that's because he's from Kentucky, but it's such a great story too. And then I think the one that I hear the most feedback about that I also really love is the hot dog episode. I think it's really funny. The ones that are goofy, I have a lot of fun with. The Dancing Queen one too. That was a good one. Yeah. All right. Question.
We'll do 2 more.
Okay.
How long does it take you to make each episode?
Oh, yeah. So the thing about me is I am literally a one-man show. I do all the reading, the research, the writing. Sometimes I have people do the voice, like the episode that I'm going to release in a couple weeks. I'm going to have my friend Melly from Stoop Kid Stories. She's going to read. It's about Ella Fitzgerald. It's going to be so good. But it takes me exactly how long it takes for it to show up in your feed, which is about a month. So I research, and then I write, and then I edit, and then I hit publish, and it shows up in your feed. That's what I can do. I can do it once a month. I wish I could do more, but I only have so much time.
Do you remember that Anne Bonny one?
Anne Bonny? That was episode number 3, Deep Cuts. Yeah. Oh, I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, she was an awesome pirate. Yeah. I have a friend who used to act at the museum. She would do a portrayal and act as Anne Bonny. So that's how I came to love that story.
Mick's going to be out if you want to ask him more questions, buy the remaining books that he has. And I think you've got some swag as well.
If it's left, I don't know. Molly was kind enough to see to it, so I don't know what's out there now.
Big round of applause for Mick Sullivan.
Thank you all very much. Thank you all very much. This was so much fun. I love you all.
If you have tickets to Smash Boom Bass, if you could just remain in your seats for a couple minutes. If you don't, you can leave. But just a couple minutes, we're going to register you in, and then you can head out to the lobby. So if you've got tickets for Smash Boom Bass, just stay in your seats. Just stay in your seats, and it will only take a couple minutes, and we'll register you, and then you can go use the bathrooms and meet everybody outside.